Hi, welcome to Tales from the Sky Lounge. It's a podcast about business, consulting, and venture investing. We get out there in the world and we talk to people who are making it happen and we get their stories. And today in the Sky Lounge, Bob Brogan. Hey, Bob. Welcome to the Sky Lounge.
Thanks, Todd. Spent many a year in the Sky Lounge. I'm a road warrior for more than 20 years, working in operations, IT consulting, and strategy. I've spent a lot of time in Sky Lounges, especially from a work standpoint. It's allowed me to travel the world and go through exciting adventures and journeys.
Very cool. Well, we're very eager to find out a little bit more about you and what you're working on. Right now, you're managing partner at TechCXO for the Great Lakes region. So would love to talk to you about that a little bit. But first,
Yep.
I want to understand, how does a guy that's a Packer backer move to Chicago and become a Bears fan?
So I'll do the abridged version. My grandfather and great uncle were George Halas's best friends, and they went to high school together. And I guess my grandfather was a high school football star with Halas.
Okay.
After he got out of Illinois, my grandfather and great uncle gave him the money to start the Bears.
No kidding. How about
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah, which is crazy. So my grandfather got his 10% of the shares back in the 1930s or 1940s.
Wow.
And my great uncle's kids sold out in 1989 for 28 and a half, somewhere. I don't know the exact number. I didn't get their tax returns. So, so when I was 5 years old, we moved from Chicago, suburban Chicago, to Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So my entire schooling from kindergarten through high school was in Green Bay, and the rampant Packer fans, it was difficult to remain a Bears fan, but I have a bigger alliance to my mom than I do Green Bay. So
Oh, wow.
that's how that. But it's cool. Love the Bears. I'm tired of them winning the off season and then falling on their face.
Yeah.
3 years in a row. So anyway,
the Bears. Yeah.
the Bears, right?
So you got it honestly, and you grew up deep in enemy territory over there in Green Bay.
Absolutely. Because we were so close to Lake Michigan, we could get the broadcasts on the radio with moving the single aerial around and putting tinfoil on it so that you could hear it. We were masters at listening to Chicago radio up in Green Bay.
Anyway. It's kind of funny. I was going to say my kids never will have that experience, but I think there's one time at Boy Scout camp, like 1 year, one kid brought an AM crank radio, and then they were kind of like doing that same thing, going around the mountains trying to discovering AM radio for the first time, some weird country station and then some, news talk or something.
Absolutely. Growing up in Green Bay and listening to Bob Euchre and Merle Harmon Brewer broadcasts when they were really terrible in the 70s. You'd have the transistor and you'd have the earplug, and you'd listen to Bob Euchre tell stories to you the entire night while you're falling asleep. It was a great way to grow up.
Very cool. Well, let's talk about your kind of professional career. So where did you go to school, and then kind of how did you get into your current track of business?
Okay. Well, yes. So I went to University of Notre Dame. I graduated with a degree in marketing.
Okay.
So I was out of the business school. And what I figured is, I know enough about marketing. I better get educated on the other functions within a business. And so I spent my entire 40-year career working through and getting educated on anything outside of marketing.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
always from a functional leadership or a technology leadership, and the like. And uh, went to Wall Street. Didn't necessarily like to live in New York and commute 2.5 hours each way. So moved to Chicago, started my MBA school, got an MBA in finance from Loyola while I was a banker. So I'm a night school grad. And my career took off from that. Went into corporate finance in the franchise market for a couple of 3 years. It was before, it was truly before laptop, PC, and alike. Luggable, compact computers that you'd travel with that weighed more than a child.
Wow. Yeah.
That was what I started in. And the systems were really terrible. And so I had a friend who was working at a subsidiary of IBM, and they they were opening up a territory for data warehousing, business intelligence solutions in Canada. They were a big company here, but were bought by IBM. They came out of Palo Alto Research Center. So they invented the mouse, the iconic interface, all of the technical pieces that when you had to go back and build your own to necessarily get your applications to work, you build your own computer. We had to do that. But that's when I started hitting the Sky Lounge. Is right at that time, because I commuted 5 days a week from Chicago to Toronto or Montreal, and helped them build a business up there, which ultimately they did, and then transitioned out of there. This was the first of two times that Lou Gerstner from IBM, make elephants dance, sent me to the sidelines.
Okay.
Reorganization of their software group. And each time I ended up getting a contract back to them to work with the largest clients they had. So I must have been doing something right, I figure, because they kept me coming back.
Oh, wow. So you're literally Roadshow Bob there for a little while.
Yes. Yeah. And then I truly went and started to run some services organizations from there. And probably, let's see, I turned around probably 4 different services organizations over my career. And by creating repeatable solutions and templatizing businesses so that you could expedite 80% of the work up front and do 20% of the work based on what your business model was.
Right. Right.
Okay. That concept, I raised 25 mil or $23 million in a series, or not a series, an angel round in 1999
That's a lot of
to
money in
do that.
99. Yeah.
Yes, it was. And it basically was the precursor to SaaS. Okay. Which is interesting, because we spent almost a year not orchestrating, but negotiating a contract with Oracle for their database. And they said, we can't price it in any other way than per server.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Back then,
We're
yeah.
like, well, Larry, the guys, Mr. Ellison, all of those guys, you might want to think about that moving forward. Anyway,
so we see a lot of echoes with that now, where people are, it's like this: the longer you're in tech, the more you realize everything's just a big cycle, right? So
and
it's the AI thing now, right? So everybody wants to squeeze down that first 80% that you're talking about, right? And then make it super automated, a little bit more intelligent, very slick, do most of the work, so that my really smart people in the back end can pick it up and knock it out.
Absolutely. And so cycles, I mean, the most important thing I've learned over my career is that technology rolls in cycles, business models roll in cycles, cash rolls in cycles.
Boy, does it.
Okay.
That's for sure.
And you know what? And you have to adapt to the external cycles of the economy, the ecosystem, as well as make certain that you've got the flexibility in your organization to then adopt and mature your operating model. Because again, everything works in cycles. If you base everything off a cash to cash cycle, okay, and you understand 3 or 4 main costs and revenue and collection drivers, just follow the dollar through each function in the business, okay? And how long it takes, what percentage of time and money does it cost to go through the lead to customer contract, okay? And the collection of it. So that's your, your ultimately your go-to-market engine or your revenue cycle. And then on the back side, it's procure to pay. Okay. That works in retail. That works in manufacturing and CPG. Being a Chicago guy, we are the logistics capital of a hub, I should say, of the US. So you learn a lot about how pieces fit together and how they take them apart, and then how do you manipulate them so that they move along with the roadmap that you want to take. Okay.
So, being in Chicago, you've probably seen a lot of really interesting businesses that went by, and then you're naming all the companies: IBM, Xerox PARC, all these legendary places where you're just kind of like, yeah, it's just what we do during the day. But who knew they would turn out to be such a legendary thing? And
I had great mentors, Todd. I think you were
sure.
about to ask that. But
Yeah, yeah. And then Xerox PARC is legendary for innovation. I don't know what was in the water at that point in time, but IBM was legendary for sales training, right? And then getting you in there, and then sell the hardware, but also make a lot of money on the services side of things. And it sounds like you're
yeah,
right in the thick of it.
so sell value, deliver value.
Okay.
Okay. That never gets old. Okay. No matter where you are in a business cycle, you could be at startup, scale up, growing up, or exiting the business. Okay. In any of those situations, you need to kind of think in that mindset. It's different because, you know, an entrepreneur in and of themselves are going to build around the strengths of their core team or who they are. Okay. And typically when you walk into a business, the weaker areas are opposite of the leadership in the business. And, so the question then becomes, how long is each function's journey to get to minimally viable marketing, sales? So keep the operating model floating at the same and then moving at the same speed while adjusting to the external. And ultimately, you're going to cap out. Each operating model caps out, right? I mean, you know that, you know, uh, by industry. So SaaS, it could be, it's typically 2, 10, 25, 50. Okay. You may need to adopt your business models based on that, right? In insurance, it could be something different. In a services business or a supply chain business, those again are the things that all have to fit together for a company to evolve. Sorry, it's
Yeah.
the philosophy of Bob.
Yeah. So the let's just kick that around for a second. So I saw something go by on LinkedIn. Everybody's, AI is gonna drive the barrier to entry to almost zero. It's gonna come all the way back around. We talk about cycles, right? It's all the way back around to the talent of the founders. And then I saw an article yesterday. This is the 3-person archetypical, highly leveraged startup. And you were talking about the founders, and then opposite of them
Yeah,
is
yeah.
usually weak. So there's this notion of the visionary founder, so subject matter expert or somebody's got a lot of context, CEO, right? And then you have the words person, and then the numbers person, right? Their analytical personality. And I thought, it's kind of, it's different words for the same people that we've all experienced, right? And then, like, your career, I'm not sure which one you are, but so you're the marketing guy,
Well,
so you're
no,
kind of
it
the
was
words
so
guy, but you're
yeah,
the
no,
analytical
you
guy,
have you I think you've absolutely nailed it, right? Because the entrepreneur is unique, right? And then he's got to have him or her have to have their right hand and their left hand, okay? And that will work for a period of time, right? And then you evolve and you grow and you have more people and all of a sudden complexity. No, keep it simple, guys. Keep it simple, girls. Um, uh, Understand how it's going to flow. Okay. And then, you know what? Building blocks, right? Every successful business I've seen in 40 years has basically a a modular design components, right? So you add components just like you do on software or whatever, but understand those spaces. And if I'm going in a direction that, you know, the government went crazy and said this is outlawed, right? Or I'm tariffed, right? Or I'm this or I'm that, you have to look at, with those components, how do I adapt my business and my go to market to fit within those external components. So uh, and the other thing I really like is it's repeatable. Okay, repeatable. Okay, and then the design of the business needs to expand with the growth of the business. Okay, and um, uh, um, I can, I've got a million stories on that, but uh, I'll let you come back
Sure, yeah.
to
Well,
um,
this
questions.
is kind of a fun little thread we're pulling on here, right? So, as you progress in your career, as you've had an entrepreneurial career, you didn't get stuck in one stovepipe, right? And you've got a lot of cross functional skills, which I think is very common among entrepreneurial people. You start off with one thing, but then you quickly, so
Yeah,
I had a company in, 97, 97 that we started, and it was outsourced IT administration. And then it was kind of like what you're saying, right? And none of us knew any of the MBA stuff. We didn't understand finance or bookkeeping and like marketing and all that stuff. And then so it's like, okay, I got to learn this stuff because nobody's going to do this, right? So you figure it out. My dad's a
yeah.
marketing
Figure it
professor,
out.
so got a little bit of that in the background, but I think you kind of figure it out, and then you help other people start their companies, and you kind of form your ideas about kind of what works, what doesn't work. And then I think you came to the same place where a lot of us come to. It's like, I want to either start a company or I want to help other people start companies. So I know you're involved with Notre Dame's, in the angel investing community.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's talk about like what do you look for now? Now being in Chicago, you probably had access to the like McDonald's and Sears and some of those big companies like that.
Yeah, no,
What
I those were my clients over the years, and so each ecosystem evolves. Uh, 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 Chicago. New York, you name it. Everybody has their special ecosystems, right? And I think it's important to, learn from the best and work with the best, and then um, uh, figure out what works best for a company at a scaled down
Mm-hmm.
level. Okay, and I, I believe in the philosophy of I'm going to say this. It's going to sound stupid, but the philosophy of why are phone numbers 7 digits long?
Why are they 7 digits long?
Because that's as long a span of numbers that you could remember.
Well, 4 and then 3 because of your city, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Bingo. Exactly. Without my point being, okay, once it gets a company or an organization gets over 6 or 7 core paths, both horizontally and vertically in the business, and they're still stuck, it's time to change your business model.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
so. Go
So
ahead.
all the way back to the zero, the beginning, as an angel investor, given all this background and history, what do you solve for, or what do you like to see in a brand new
Yeah.
company that
Now I
comes in
think
for investment?
uh, uh, founders' passion and understanding. Okay, um, uh, their ability to work with others. Okay, because it's lonely being the CEO, and so you build up. Uh, um, uh, I call it know-it-all muscles.
Okay.
It's
Fake it till you
because you
make it
know
muscles.
everything.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And at some point you don't.
Okay. Right.
Okay, or the industry has passed you by, or it's matured. I don't mean that in a negative context. I mean it in a positive context. But again, keep modular, keep it simple as you expand and grow. So so modular design is important. Team, vision, and execution. Okay, because execution is really key, and how does the execution tie to the cash? So how much more cash do I need to finish my journey to the next level? Okay, so those that know it all and present as they know it all, okay, don't typically get funded
Okay.
quickly.
I need help is a good thing to say
Yeah,
to an
yeah,
investor.
yeah. No, because you know what? During these early stages, right? You've got a proof of concept. You don't necessarily know how to go to market yet. You're all of the componentry. You are fixing your solution for the market, okay? And then everything else is tangential to that, okay? But then you've got to build them up so that they all get to their minimally viable state that if they're in a seed round, okay, you'd expect to see you know some traction. Could be friends and family. Founder led sales is always going to be an issue as you scale, because and making it repeatable, okay, and those those are what I've learned from the angel investing, and uh, you know uh, the most of the work that I've done applies to about 90% of the industries that the entrepreneurs work in.
Yeah. Well, we
So
always we always preach, unit economics. No, at least have a good idea in it and be figuring
yeah,
it out,
unit
right? Have a
economics,
thesis,
absolutely.
right? And they know your runway. So what if I give you $1 million? So we have this mentorship thing for university kids. Some of them get it. A lot of them get it. Very smart kids. Some of them just go, "Oh, I want $100,000." It's like, okay, what are you going to use that for? I don't know. Yeah, I did.
I want to bring that up because the fascination that I've always had with entrepreneurs and how people make money when the people are in college or university or whatever, okay, they need mentoring and coaching too. And
Absolutely.
so um, invest in your communities. 12 years ago, I founded with 12 other people um, a charity called the Legacy Guild.
Okay.
The Legacy Guild gives college scholarships to uh, residents' children in our high school district that have lost a parent.
Okay. That's a great cause.
My, yeah. The high school my kids went to had 4,500 kids, and we had two friends pass away very close to each other, and we were like, you know, uh, one of them used to meet and say, "How do you be a better dad, a better worker, a better blah, blah, blah." So the Legacy Guild had two things. It had what I would call uh, 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 a how to be a better person, but also how can we help these kids that, if they were my own kids, I would hope that somebody else would do the same thing. And over that 12 years, we've raised over $2.5 million and given away that 700 or 800 scholarships. The number
It's
is,
fantastic.
and what we do is we help them get internships. We get corporate people to get their resumes ready. We everything that you would think that they would have at home. We want to provide that guidance for them in the career. And what's really, really, for me, is really inspiring is some of the scholars are now leading our board.
So, okay, that was what I was going to ask you.
So,
Is you
so,
probably
so
had enough where it's kind of a closed loop now, and then
now it's absolutely a
how
closed
fun is
loop.
that to see those
Oh,
alumni, plow it
it's,
right back in, right?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. Pay it forward in your community. And I had the same intern for 3 years
Oh wow,
on three different customers in three different industries.
how about that?
And the young guy got to see three different businesses and understand their business models. And he was a finance major. And so, and 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 uh, he helped work on my largest exit. The intern did
What
a
was
hundred
your
million dollar $100 million exit.
well? Tell us that story. What was the names? What was that? There's always a really cool story on these exits, because it's
He,
overnight success. It just took 7 years, kind of usually, right?
this one took 43.
Oh my god. Okay. Okay. And what
It
was
was a it was an overnight success, 43 years in the making. Uh, the founder held and created online ordering in the 1990s, early 90s, before the internet, right? And the vast majority, he had the patents for all of these.
no kidding? Okay.
And um, he had hooked his start to many different different franchise organizations because a good percentage of their revenue, especially pizza, um, is takeout or delivery, right? And he charged a couple of cents. A few cents per transaction, and built a $27 million run rate business.
Wow. Annual run rate.
Annual run rate with a 50% plus gross margin.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. But they ran the business out of the checkbook. So I had to build 3 years of financials. I brought in a young controller who worked for an old friend of mine. He didn't know that I knew that, but and the two of us went on this journey, and we brought in our interns. We had short-term cash fixes that we needed to do. We took um, our outstanding receivables from 138 days to 38
Oh,
in a
that's huge.
in a summer.
Wow. Just by asking and sending a few letters, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, and just orchestrating it, right?
It's fantastic.
And so then uh uh we built out the financials, the model. We had some other tax and uh challenges and patent defense challenges that we ultimately won.
Oh, wow.
Um, but over a 15-month period, we went from not being able to know where our cash position was to understanding every piece of the business and why it was in place. And we we passed an IRS audit uh, as
Jeez.
well during that time. And the owner sold the business to it's now it was a precursor to Pizza Hut's digital business, sold it in 2020. So it was great. I have friends for life from that experience, and it was a team coming together and responding in unforeseen ways, and all with a common purpose of um, building the business for the future. And that's always exciting to me.
So we talk about this comes up a lot. There's kind of there's this transition in skill set between early career and late career, right? And then so you kind of pass this kind of boundary, and it's not so much individual contributor. It's strategic execution, strategic vision, just been there, done that, knowing what to do, and then you said it beautifully. You said I brought in my interns or my people, a couple people. I knew what to do, gave it to them to go execute. We talk about fractional, C-level executives, but that's kind of, you know, that's the secret sauce, right? Is you get somebody you don't
Todd, absolutely.
you don't have to work 80 hours a week to get this done, and you shouldn't, right? And then by you leveraging other people and just kind of calling the shots.
Your explanation of my journey from a work standpoint is absolutely true. I did not believe at the age of 40 I'd been a millionaire a couple of times, and then not a
Right.
millionaire a few weeks later.
Sure.
Um, uh, I was always at the tactical level, and then I went to work for Alvarez and Marcel, and they could take a business apart in 72 hours and put it back together and
Nice.
identify all of the issues. And that was the piece that I was missing. All right. And then it went from uh, learning to then applied learning and teaching now, and mentoring and coaching. And that's the way our most careers go.
Let me ask you a question about coaching, and then maybe this is a coaching moment for me. But you know, I'm at the point now where I've seen enough mistakes. I've seen a lot of mistakes get made. I want to say all of them because there's always new and different mistakes. Um, and then you go in, you tell people, "Hey, this is what you're doing wrong, and this is how you fix it." And then some do, some don't, right? And then how do you
Right.
handle, you know, take it apart 72 hours? I can give you exactly the playbook. You know, for darn sure, 90% certainty this is going to help. What happens when
Yeah.
they don't take
So
your advice?
the change management piece of that is so critical. And so from my perspective, I've sat in their chair. I know what they've been asked to do in generic terms, right? And I was the chief revenue officer. I was the chief technology officer. When I was running scrums, Todd, I wish I knew you then. Um, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I was good enough at all those things, but you know what? All of the components, you need to know. Let's think of it as um, your first programming class. Inputs, outputs. What happened in between the input and the output?
Well, and then it's a people problem, right? At some point where
Bingo.
you have to, I guess you have to kind of preload, like, okay, we can tell you how to fix this, but you have to be willing to do it for it to make
Yeah,
any difference.
that is uh, a combination of experience and uh, um, where the funding people are in the mix here. Those two components, because it ultimately always comes down to cash funding, cash flow. Um, in those cycles, Todd, I'm a cycles guy. So funny. My worst class in college was operational accounting, and I've spent my entire career doing operations and accounting.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah. God has a sense of humor, I
you
guess.
know, so
Let's talk about cycles. Okay. So you're in the Midwest, known to be the Rust Belt, I have, older relatives that, came out of that area, and have seen, 70s, 80s, just go, 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 and like insane country clubs and parties. And, it's not so much that anymore. And, Detroit's a little depressing to go visit, are we going to see, where are we in that cycle? Surely it's not forever. Are we, with this new policy regime coming out of DC, are we gonna see a renaissance in manufacturing and distribution coming out of the Midwest? Are you seeing that yet?
I,
Or
I I I would hope so. There have been opportunities to do it before. COVID might have been one where, you know what, we could have reestablished some sorts of manufacturing here in the Midwest. Food. My daughter works in food.
okay,
She works for Diageo. People always have to eat. Okay. So basic necessities, right, are there. There's a lot of food companies in the Midwest. There's a lot of trucking that supports it. Okay. We are in. So, um, the manufacturing that will be done will be much smarter, if invested in correctly, right? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but you know what? Let's make certain that there's enterprise zones or whatever that seed the industries, because you can't. I'll use an analogy of a quick story here. Okay, I saw a company that, what do? They do battery rechargers for streetlights, or
okay,
in streetlights, so that if you have an electric car, you can plug it into the streetlight, okay, and it'll charge. The reason, one of the many reasons, but one of the reasons because of battery technology. Okay, one of the reasons that uh, uh, it hasn't taken off is battery technology is evolving. Okay, uh, uh, the two major there's three major investments here in Chicago. One is the supercomputing network.
Oh,
Okay, that
okay.
is being done at IIT, which is used. So the supercomputing. Remember when Cray was up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin,
Yeah, yeah.
and they were Minneapolis, right? So they were the supercomputing what in the 80s or seven.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
even remember.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a supercomputing, and then there's the we didn't win the hydrogen or high the CERN super piece, but we have two labs here that are working on alternatives to uh, um, uh, alternatives to battery technologies. And I play golf with a guy who's got a bunch of the patents from
Okay.
that, but that's a different
Is
story.
that like a hydrogen fuel cell kind of thing? Like a whole different
Yes,
technology?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and some of those things then come in and start overlapping with the angel and venture community and government funding and grants, and there's more ways to build and grow than one way, but those are the seeds that are being still germinated. And food, okay, what you're seeing in the market right now is multi-generational food are selling now because or been bought by PE, right? And there's still an aging population of entrepreneurs and owners. So you're going to see that cycle continue for a while. Okay. Money's still hard to get, right? And we've all had those issues. I'm finishing the Series A that we thought would take 6 months. We got the commitment 4 months ago. It closes Friday.
Oh God.
so,
Okay.
so right,
But hey, you're getting it done, right? You're definitely
right,
getting it done.
right. No, and you know what? And a great partner, Adam Boris. I work with him, another TechCXO. If you've got healthcare, he's a wonderful person here out of Chicago, and the opportunity to work with great entrepreneurs at TechCXO who have been there and done that. I've learned from them throughout as well, um, uh, and um, uh, everything I look at as a team sport except my golf score.
I got it. Got it. You're gonna own that one, right?
I own that one. It's bad.
Well, so we've all seen a couple cycles. I started a company in 2008. The stock market was crashing.
Hmm.
GFC, and then everything was falling apart, and it became very difficult very quickly to raise an angel round. I got one done. It kind of reminds me of your Series A you're talking about, but like God, I talked to so many people over and over and over again, and it was so hard. And then you see, a couple years later, it gets real easy again. And then zero interest
Right.
rate, and then um,
Absolutely.
so timing's a big part of it. But I believe good deals can get done in any season. It's just a little harder, right? And then so
Oh, absolutely.
what's required? I'll ask you two questions. Okay, so if you're a startup, right now looking for money, kind of where's the bar for fundable, right? Because that varies. From like, hey, I got a napkin and an idea to, I got to have five exits, and I've already put in 1 million myself, and you know,
Yeah.
and
I would
then where's the
say,
cycle going, right? And then where are we
yeah,
in the
no,
cycle?
I'd say I agree with you. Good deals always get done. Number one, that by rule. Okay. Uh, uh, yes, it's going to take longer. in bad liquidity or bad interest rate cycles, right? To because you have to guarantee a return to your investor, okay? And so I, I've given multiple CEOs advice. I need to. They would say, I need to grow this to exit. I said, well, I don't necessarily believe that that's true. Okay. If it's a lifestyle business and you don't want to grow it to the next stage or whatever, okay, invest in it differently than you would if you are going there. Okay. So begin with the end in mind. Okay. My end in mind is I'm sometime going to exit this. Okay. So design all of the information and the back due diligenceable, if that's such a word, components that they're always ready. The online pizza ordering story that I told, okay, when when I got called, they had turned down two um two previous offers to sell the business. And the reason why was they knew that their financial house was not in order.
Got it.
Okay.
So you said not right now.
So, you know what?
Okay.
You got to build out the components of the data room and come back from there. Okay. Because your journey is ultimately to get to the data room.
Right. Well, and I think repeat entrepreneurs inherently understand that. And then, you put in a system day one, even though it's like
Yeah.
ridiculously overpowered for, like we've got
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
customers, how hard is it? No, you need, QuickBooks or
Yeah.
NetSuite or
Todd,
something. Right.
that's a great, that's a great point. You know what I look at is, okay, all right, we're going to have a roadmap. Okay. But the roadmap, you're going to move in digestible chunks. Okay. Step one, step two, step three for this function. Step one, step two, step three. Okay. And there's really only four levers that you need to know, right? Okay. What's my W-2 cost? Okay. And number. What's my uh, uh, um, third party or 1099 contracted labor? What is my fixed and variable SG&A costs? Okay. And then what is the cost of goods truly, simply? And those are four levers, right? That anybody can manage to a budget for, okay? But if you're gonna be budget driven, make certain that you have the dollars in there for innovation, for all of the pieces that you make your company you, right? Um, so, but eh, that 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 shows a much more evolved uh, organization. Here in Illinois, it's a little bit slower. We're Midwest. We're slow adopters. Okay. But you know what? We know the solid fundamentals and make certain that you understand the fundamentals, because if you're building a business off of a bad foundation, it's just going to continually crack until it stymies you from growing.
But I think, you say Midwest, we're a little slower. I think that's more typical. We always read the Silicon Valley go, go, go stories. That is weird and different and very, very, very unusual. I think most of the world, Europe, Southeast, Northeast, even, people want to see solid companies, that understand their fundamentals, blocking and tackling. And, can you make stuff? Can you sell stuff? And then it's really not much
Input
harder than that.
output, right?
Right. And if you get that right, there's a lot of help, a lot, from a lot of different people that are willing to help out. It's easy to find help.
Yeah, if I had career advice, Todd, for anybody, it's figure out what you don't know, okay? And find the expert to fill in that blank, right? Because
Absolutely.
I can't know everything. It's, and uh, that's the loneliest part of the journey for a lot of entrepreneurs is, I don't have somebody whispering in my ear that that's the way things are. And, they can take it or leave it. Bob Brogan has been wrong more than he's been right. All you have to do is call my wife. Joke. No, I want all you need to do is, call in, um, uh, uh, I I tell the story to a lot of people that I was only the fourth smartest person at my own dinner table.
Oh no.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And there were only three. I would like to say there were only three, but the the fourth and the fifth are doing great, and so are one, two, and three. Okay, and they've all taken different paths. That's fascinating. Again, it goes back to my, hey, how do you make a buck? Okay. And what value do you ultimately bring to the table? And, I've been blessed with, global travel for work, right? Now it's time for some global travel for my family, my wife, those who have supported me while I was on the road my entire career. So while I'm looking at stepping away soon from TechCXO, I'm also just recreating the next steps in my path, which is probably more board work, more investment. If there's a particular investment that I've done where my skills can be beneficial to the overall output, I will do those types of things. So, um, uh, I love being a lifelong learner, and uh, uh, as one of nine kids, okay, eight boys and one girl,
Oh wow.
I had to learn how to jump in really quickly, get my stuff, get out.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so that was chaos. So I've been in a chaotic environment in my mind my entire life. And so how do we simplify it? And that's really kind of um you know there's about five people that if I had a problem today that I worked with throughout my career, I could pick up the phone and they would go, "Yeah, Bob, no problem. This is uh, you know, let's get together, blah blah blah, and figure it out." And that's what that's fabulous. People have shaped me. I didn't shape myself. Okay, so I'm a product of I guess environment is a good way to speak of it.
I had this kind of philosophy, as I've gotten older, I want to help as many people as I can. Right. And then,
That's
that's my
great,
guiding
Todd.
principle. And then, it's kind of amazing how many opportunities I get, from the world. But like, I feel so much better waking up in the morning when I know I've got 4 or 5 people that are struggling and I've got that one little piece or that one little connection I can make for them. And it seems like kind of nothing, but as you've gained all this
Yeah,
experience and
yeah, it's a pay it forward mentality, Todd. And I believe that you have to pay it forward, right? Okay. There's craziness out there, right?
yeah, for
You're
sure.
seeing it right now in a lot of different ways, okay? But um, uh, uh, being able to sort through the I world class guy who could mix metaphors. That's me. If
Okay.
Bob, if Bob, it's spelled the same backwards and forwards, but the mixed metaphor, you know, most of the time, um, uh, uh, you know, if you keep it simple and um, uh, constantly know what other people are doing, and you're out there, you're engaged, you're in the environment, opportunities are going to come to you. Um, uh, when I announced to a few people, close friends, that I was leaving, I got 3 leads out of
No kidding. How about that?
it.
Hey,
And I
Bob,
was
before
like,
you go, can you help us with
yeah,
this? Right.
and I was
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to. but so that's also share and share alike. Um, and my journey. When I started at TechCXO 12 years ago, I didn't know if I could do it. I just didn't have the self confidence, the understanding, and you know what? Uh, I I had some great mentors and leaders in this firm. Okay, what you could Ted Stone, Mike Casey was the person who brought me in 12 years ago when we sold a SaaS company. Um, uh, you know, uh, you name it, your team, Todd, any of the CTOs, they're great, they're smart, they know, you know what, and everybody's got a little bit different experience and understanding, and um, collaborating with people like that is as much fun as you can have. So I don't see myself ever truly walking away. I just would like to make certain that I've balanced it with the personal pieces that are coming in what I think is the last quarter of my life.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
and uh, uh, and I say that only because family members died in their late 90s in my family, so I
Yeah.
got a long way to go.
Yeah. You have long livers in your genetic makeup, right? I also live a long time. So I would love to hear some of these roadshow stories. Have you got any great travel stories that you'd love to share with us over your career?
Yeah, one of my favorites was um, I was working for a PE firm for a portfolio company in Columbus, Indiana. If you've not been to Columbus, Indiana, it's a fairly small town halfway between Louisville and Indy. And uh, Cummins Engine has a big place down there. Uh, so there's a lot of truck part manufacturing right in that area. So the company had operations all over Europe and South Africa. And I was selected to work through part of their 100-day plan post acquisition.
Got it.
And I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Okay. You can get from the one edge of town to the other in less than 15 minutes. Okay. So me getting on a plane, doing work in London, in Germany, um, uh, in the Netherlands. I was on this trip for this company, and they needed a volunteer to go to South Africa. It's the middle of the summer, South Africa, never been. I raised my hand. So instead of flying home, I go to South Africa, which was terrific, fun. We worked through the entire piece. I spent 5 days in South Africa. I was provided with a driver, and the plant manager uh, was a red wine aficionado
Oh, very nice.
in Cape Town, just north of Cape Town, the vineyards.
Yeah.
So for a week, I went out to dinner with him, and at the end, he took me up to Stellenbosch, and uh, it was crazy. So then the flight back, Cape Town to Johannesburg to um, Frankfurt to London to Chicago.
Jeez, that's a long day. A couple days.
32 hours.
Holy smokes. And then that's what, 5 planes? So
Yeah, 5 planes, 32 hours. Uh, my
I can't even
and
imagine.
it was really the last trip I took as a road warrior because my wife had called me midway through it and said, your kids are teenagers not right now, and they're not going to be teenagers again. It might make some sense that you move off the road.
Yeah. I think that's smart. That's very smart.
And it was for me again, the plant in South Africa, rhodium. Okay, rhodium is only available there and in Japan.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Okay, and catalytic converters are made with rhodium in it. And so any exhaust system in a car uh, needs rhodium to clean the exhaust. And so when people when you hear this story of people stealing catalytic converters from cars, okay, in the last 5 years, it's because of the rhodium.
No kidding. It used to be like platinum, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I mean, crazy that things I would have never learned in a million years, just by by taking the trek. So, um, uh, I another time, uh, I was working with a refinancing for about a $75 million company, really kind of a recap, right? And I am literally on the phone while I'm in line trying to get through the Toronto customs to come back home for this was 2019. And I'm saying, we can't do this deal, guys, financially, because it's going to put you in default within 2 weeks with your new lender. And the CEO and COO refused to keep $800,000 in the business that needed to be in the business for this to work. They pulled it out personally.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And um, uh, when that happened, it was time for me to leave, because you know what? If you're not above board and you're pulling money out, uh, uh, you know, I can lead you to water, but you're going to have to drink and understand the implications for something that it put them. It ended up blowing up um, a a growth capital investment because, and of course, it was the CFO's fault at the end of the day, is what they told us. But, or, the story they were telling everybody else. But the fact of the matter was, no, all of this was already articulated to you, showed to you in the numbers, and you decided that your individual greed was more important than the business that you were running. And if that's your mode of operation, feel free to find a new CFO, which I left shortly thereafter. So, but I did get through, immigration that day. And on the flight home, my passport fell out of my backpack.
Oh, no.
And because it was U.S. immigration in Toronto, okay, it's somewhere on a 737 flying around 5 years later.
Oh, God. They're going to find it when they decommission it.
But
Holy
yeah,
smokes.
and then so from then on, that passport will never leave my sight.
Do you have one of those neck things where you kind of like, you can feel it just in case? Under the sweater, under the jacket.
Absolutely, Todd. Yeah. No, because I always put it in the same place.
Right. Yeah.
And I reached in and I'm like, oh no.
That's a horrible day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you just have to answer a few questions and then get through and show your driver's license kind of thing?
Well, actually, because I was already through it and it fell out.
Okay.
After immigration, technically in Toronto, I was in the United States already.
So you were on the good side of the line, and then
I was on the good side of the line. Otherwise, I would have been. Oh, that would have been absolutely no fun.
That was one of the Jimmy Rogers had Investment Biker. I think it was one of the books where he rode motorcycle all over the world, and that was one of his learnings. It's like anytime there's a control checkpoint, get through as immediately as possible, and then figure it out, right? So it sounds like you did that. Get through, and then take a breath.
That that could summarize a 40-year career, Tom.
Get through the checkpoint before you screw around. Yeah.
Right.
Well, fun.
Right.
Well, hey, Bob.
Yeah.
It's been great having you here. We could go on and on, but how can people get in touch with you after this if they'd love to follow up on any of this stuff on the internet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Two ways that they can reach me is via email. Okay, that old-fashioned at Bob Brogan, Brogan, the number 2 at gmail.com, or they can find me Bob Brogan on LinkedIn. Probably will be picking up my social media presence in my new firm, which is called 4B Partners. And it's, you can ask me why it's 4B Partners.
Why is it 4B, Bob? Who are these other 3 Bs?
My nephew, I had a nickname as a child.
Okay.
Bucky.
Bucky. Okay.
Yeah, like Bucky Badger.
Like Wisconsin.
Right, exactly. Being from Wisconsin. So Bob, Bucky, Badger, Brogan.
Okay. So you're the 4 Bs. It's kind of like 4H, but 4 Bs.
right.
Okay.
So it's a little nod to my nephew that I just played golf with in Orlando 2 weeks ago. A little nod to him, but we'll continue working there. It's been great talking with you, Todd.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. So great having you, and bye for now.
All right. Terrific. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us in the Sky Lounge. Please like and subscribe to hear more from Tales from the Sky Lounge here and anywhere else you get your podcasts.